Hello everyone, my name is Minnie Sethi. I hope you all are staying healthy. Today we are going to talk about the meaning of working capital, types of working capital and factors affecting working capital. So what is working capital? Working capital means cash that business requires for their day-to-day operations. Working capital means cash that business requires for their day-to-day operations. And formula of calculating net working capital is current assets minus current liabilities. Current asset means any asset that company can convert into cash in short time period, usually in 1 year. For example, short time period securities, bill receivable, etc. And current liabilities are obligation expected to paid within 1 year. For example, bill payable and our creditors, etc. And when we minus current liabilities from current assets, remaining will be called our net working capital. Now we are going to talk about types of working capital. Working capital basically divided into two types, on the basis of value and on the basis of time. And on the basis of value, working capital further divided into two types, gross working capital and net working capital. Similar, on the basis of time, working capital further divided into two types, permanent working capital and temporary working capital. One by one we discuss about each. On the basis of value, first type of working capital is gross working capital. Total current assets of company will be called gross working capital. Total current assets of company will be called gross working capital. Here you can see current assets of company are cash in hand, cash in bank, bill receivable and short term investment. And total of current assets are 14 lakhs. This 14 lakhs will be called gross working capital of company. On the basis of value, second type of working capital is net working capital. Net working capital is difference between current assets and current liabilities of company. Net working capital is difference between current assets and current liabilities of company. For example, total current assets of company is 1 lakh and total liabilities are 40,000, and 1 lakh minus 40,000 is equal to 60,000. This 60,000 will be called net working capital of company. Now we are going to talk about types of working capital on the basis of time. And on the basis of time, first type of working capital is permanent working capital. Permanent working capital, also known as fixed working capital. And permanent working capital is minimum capital that business requires for their ongoing operations. And permanent working capital company has to maintain consistently. And this amount of capital depend on size and nature of business. And permanent working capital is funded with long-term sources of funds like investment, profit, rent, etc. Second type of working capital on the basis of time is temporary working capital. Temporary working capital means additional capital that businesses needed to meet short-term fluctuations. Temporary working capital means additional capital that businesses needed to meet short-term fluctuations. For example, capital need to meet seasonal demand, capital need for some special purposes, and temporary working capital is funded with short-term sources of funds like short-term loans, trade credits, etc. Now we are going to talk about factors affecting working capital. Nature of business. Working capital is influenced by nature of business. For example, retail shop requires less working capital as compared to wholesaler. Scale of operations. If you are operating at large scale, then obviously you require more working capital. Business cycle fluctuation. Working capital also influenced by business cycle fluctuation. For example, recession, depression, recovery, boom, etc. Seasonal factors. Working capital also influenced by seasonal factors. For example, if your company is selling throughout the season, then obviously you require more working capital. Technology. If you are producing through labor intensive technology, obviously then you require more working capital because you have to pay your laborers. Next factor that affect working capital is inflation. As we know, in case of inflation, prices of raw material increase, cost of labor also increase. Then obviously you require more working capital. Level of competitor. If you are facing more competition in market, then you require more working capital. On the other hand, in case of monopoly, requirement of working capital is less. Operating efficiently. If you have high degree of operating efficiently, means you are doing less wastage, then you require less working capital. On the other hand, if you have low degree of operating efficiently, you are doing more wastage, you require more working capital. So this is all about working capital. I think you got it, and thank you so much for watching this video. Bye, take care.